Blast me to Electia. It's time for the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey. Issues 52 and 53 Triarch Stalker Special. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey. So we got a special double issue today, and it is issues 52 and 53, as both magazines contain parts to build the Triarch Stalker. So here is our lovely new massive model. We'll take a closer look at him in just a second. And here are our magazines. So issue 52, so we've got part 1 of our Triarch Stalker. We read about the Imperial Knights, learn about the Triarch, and we also add stratagems to our games in our play section. Plus we also have the build guide for our Triarch Stalker in this issue. And on the back page, I'll show you now, we do have a lovely set of command point tokens to cut out for use in our games. And then in issue 53, got a lovely shot there of the Necrons versus the Eldari. So we've got background on Warzone Vigilus, we paint our Triarch Stalker, and we also deploy him in a brand new battle. And we also have a fold out all about the fracture of Bieltan. So we'll have a look at our frames and then we'll dive into our two magazines. So here we have our first two frames for the Triarch Stalker, and these are the ones we get in issues 52. If you do want to go ahead and build issue 52, you can build the majority of the leg assembly from just this frame. Before I do progress, I must mention that in my unboxing I muddled up the two sides. So the side of the squares, this is our top side, as the posts on our outer armour will go into there, and the underside is this piece with a four smaller dome and bowl sockets. These are for the gun mounting here. So that is pretty much all you can do on this frame, is just build the legs plus the actual gun mount itself. So you do need a lot of the components off the other frame to build the rest of the actual Stalker. But we have got some lovely detail pieces. We've got the back of the Triarch here. I'm kind of tempted to leave the body as a separate component this time around. I did build my first one all as a complete piece, and it's going to be hard to get to the back details here, so I might leave him as a separate component. But we got the arms, the head and the legs there for our Triarch Stalker. We got the vicious claws, the two giant forelimbs here and here, the two halves of the forelimb legs themselves, and then we have all the bits for our four smaller legs just there. We also get a lot of the different gun barrels and other gun equipment. So we've got the parts of the Gauss blasters here, and these energy orbs, I think they're from the Heat Ray, which is one of the alternate weapons you can build on this kit. We'll take a look at that on the other frame. So that's pretty much it for this frame. There's the other side, for those of you interested to see. It's just a lot of connector pegs and various other slots and posts, etc. There we go. And our second frame then, just have to readjust the camera a little bit. So there we go. This is our second frame. So we got, like I said, the two armor panels which form the sides of the cockpit. We've got the actual seat for our Triarch, the focusing dish for our heat ray, the two halves of the heat ray itself, the two halves of the main energy source for all the guns. So every gun will build and attach to this. You just have some little nubbings and posts here. So you've got the energy cables for the particle caster. These posts on the gauze blasters just slot into the squared sections there. And then the 4 energy orbs go attaching there for the heat ray. So we've got the particle caster itself there. This is the one the instructions tell us to build and equip. It gives you the instructions to build all the others, but this is the one they want you to build for the complete assembly. We've got the spine of the pilot area here, the dashboard section, the tail of the Triax Stalker, the 2 halves of the gauze blasters, which is what I've built my first one with. I have left them separate at the moment because I want to try and reach in and paint all this detail area here. I'll be doing the same for my second one as well. Excuse me, once I decide which gun I'm going to equip it with. We have the sensor orb here. This is for the gauze blaster, and it covers over this end cap here. Otherwise, the guns themselves cover over that end cap, and this bit's a spare. There we have the other side. So we've got some nice embossed detail on the actual armor panels itself. There's the other side of the heat ray, and that's just all the insides there. Right, let's take a look at our magazines, issues 52 and 53. So here we have our first issue, issue 52. And as we said at the beginning of the video, we read about the Imperial Knights, we learn about the different levels of the Triarch, and we add stratagems to our games. So our full contents list is our battle record for our Triax Stalker, Questors Imperialists, of the Triarch, Triax Stalker build instructions, basic stratagems, tutorial for your stratagems, and Destroyer Assault is our next mission. So, diving in, we've got our battle record for the Triax Stalker. It's a lethal battle walker. Wow, poetry. Piloted by Triarch Praetorians, the eyes and ears of the Silent King, the Triax Stalkers oversee the Necron nobles and their legions, using their own firepower to ensure the Necron race always emerge victorious. So we've got a targeting array on the top here, where the pilot sits. Got giant forelimbs. Got quantum shielding, which flares into life only before the impact occurs from the opponent's weapons. Then we've got the particle shredder here. At the bottom, we've got the heat ray. And we've got the twin heavy gauze cannon. And it just goes into a little bit more about the different levels of equipment that the Triarchs get access to. Triarch Praetorians will often sit aside for most of the combats and just let Necrons fight as they are. We'll go back into that in a bit more in our future pages in a sec. So my Triarch Praetorian is Kononek the Watchful, and his mount is the Obsidian Predator. So we got some little tick charts here, so every time you oversee a victory, destroy an enemy unit in melee, or destroy an enemy unit wide ranged, you tick off, and as you complete them, the more the Silent King sees favour for the particular legion you are the dynasty you are fighting for. Then we got another tick chart for the targeting relay at the bottom, and the battle record, of course, any exemplary battles he decides to take part in. So next up, we got a bit of background for the Questors Imperialists. So these are the Imperial Knights. Think Gundam, only less blocky, more rounded and clunky. I think Gundam are actually a bit better than Imperial Knights. But they're basically human pilots inside giant mech suits. And they can go as small as the War Dogs and up to as big as the Legio Titans. So here we have the standard Knight bodysuit with the Gatling cannon and the Power Fist, plus a rocket pod on top. Got a picture there of one of the pilots. So this is Lady Karina Griffith, noble of House Griffith and veteran pilot. And we're up against, looks like the Alpha Legion there. On the other side, we've got some of the different weapons that the Knights wield. So as ranged weapons, they've got the Avenger Gatling Cannon, the Iron Storm Missile Pod, the Rapid Fire Battle Cannon, Storm Spear Rocket Pod, Thermal Cannon, and the Twin Icarus Autocannon. So the pods and the Icarus cannons are carapace mounted and are ideally used for taking down anti-aircraft, taking down aircraft and lesser enemies, so infantry, etc. Then the bigger cannons are perfect for destroying larger vehicles and other opponent knights. Melee weapons, we have the Thunderstrike Gauntlet and the Reaper Chainsword, which comes in a couple of various sizes. There's the smaller one for the armigers, and then the really big one for the actual knight itself. Excuse me. Then we got a little quote from a Castellan of House von Graf. So moving on, we have background about the Triarchs, as we are getting our first Triarch model. So the Triarch are the right hand of the Silent King, tasked with overseeing Necron nobility, preventing internecine conflict between dynasties, enforcing the loyalty of wayward nobles, and ensuring that their legions adhere to the ancient codes of honor. So this goes back into more information telling us how the Triarch were formed, who they are, and what they do. So long ago, before biotransformance, the Necron tier race was ruled by the Triarch, a council of 3 Pharaons. The leader of this was the Silent King. And of course, they had the war in heaven, and they were put into their living metal bodies. The Triarchs themselves are watchful guides. They will observe more than intervene. If, of course, they do see an opponent who is deemed worthy, they will make sure that they have the utmost fairest of combats to see whether they are indeed worthy of being remembered. So yeah, Triarch Praetorians will often accompany other Necron legions to war, for their commitment to ensuring the survival of the Necron race remains undiminished despite the passage of long millennia. And on this side, we got the 2 different types of Triarch. So we've got the Praetorians themselves here. They are heavy elite infantry and wield shocking staff weapons. They prefer that combats between honourable enemies are done by the Necron legions and not the Canoptic constructs, so they will try to avoid fighting alongside those if possible. And then of course we've got the Triax Stalkers. So these are monstrous crab-like vehicles that scuttle towards the enemy, attacking with their vicious claws, their giant forelimbs, and of course their various different weapons. So next we have our build guide, so we'll come back to this in just a sec. So let's move on to issue 53. So here we have issue 53, and this is going to be a bit more in-depth. We have a lot of background lore in here, as that is the majority of the magazine. So we've got Warzone Vigilists painting our Triarch Stalker, and we get to deploy it in a battle. So our full contents list for this issue: Warzone Vigilists, Vehicles of the Adeptus Sororitas, Slaughter in the Rift, a short story, Order of the Bloody Rose, and Fracture of Baal Tarn, our foldout. Paint our Triarch Stalker. Then we got Stratagems for the Necrons, data sheet for the Triarch Stalker, and our mission featuring the Triarch Stalker himself. So our first page is the Warzone's page 7, featuring on Vigilus. So this is the big linchpin for a lot of the narrative in the 9th edition of 40k. So Vigilus, when the Great Rift tore into being, it became visible in the skies above the planet Vigilus. The Imperium's enemies soon followed, descending upon the world from the skies, the ground, and the warp. So Vigilus is a hive city, and it is one half of the end of the Necron Gauntlet, which is a safe passage from one side of the Imperium through the ripped open Eye of Terror into the lesser protected side, well, not lesser protected, the darker side of the Imperium. So before the Great Rift, the planet was the focus of quite a few different factions, mainly the Speed-Free Gorks and the Genestealer cults, but when the Great Rift did open, along came Abaddon and his Black Legion. Other notable forces were the Ultramarines and the Eldar of Samhain. So the Void Claw is an ancient weapon held in place on planet Vigilus, and Abaddon is trying to get it because it would be a very devastating weapon if he did. It has the basic ability to create a singularity event very similar to that of a black hole. And of course, the first battle for Vigilus is where Marneus Calgar did fall. Don't worry though, he soon crossed the Rubicon Primaris, returned, and gave Abaddon a good kicking. So, next up, we got a page all about the different Saratosa Vehicles. The Order's militant make use of many vehicles. Some function as mobile weapon platforms, launching destructive missile salvos, whilst others act as a main battle tank or transports for ferrying squads of battle sisters into the raging inferno of battle. So here we see one of them, my favourite of the battle sister tanks, the Exorcist, which is basically a massive organ on tank treads. And instead of music, it brings the beautiful serenade of destruction. So most of the Saratosa vehicles are of course based on the Rhino chassis, which is a pretty much bog standard vehicle for a lot of the Imperial factions. The Adeptus Arbites, the Adeptus Astartes, and the Adeptus Saratosa all make use of the venerable Rhino. On the other page, we do see all the different variants that the sisters have. So we got the Immolator, part Glassstone Muriel, part Flamethrower Tank, part Transport. This is usually used by commanders and their bodyguard. It usually has a small transport capacity. I think it used to be 6 models. But it's got twin heavy flamers on the front, plus a forward-facing heavy bolter. You can, of course, swap the heavy flamers out for multi-melters or heavy bolters if you so desire, which is good because that's how the original used to be. But I do prefer the original one. I didn't quite like the giant. I don't like the giant stained glass on here. I believe there is a way you can build it without that, but I prefer the other one, which had a single small circular window on. Then we have the Exorcist. Like I said, it's basically a giant pipe organ which fires missiles at the enemy. Then we got the Castigator, which is a standard battle tank. So we got either a battle cannon or autocannons on top. Then we got sponsons of heavy bolters. And then we of course have the Rhino transport itself, so utilised by many Imperial factions. This vehicle is abundant and produced in great quantities and in various patterns, so it's nice to see the Rhino still in good use. It's the very old kit, but they have been given a lovely new Sisters of Battle upgrade frame to make it look a little more ornate for the Sisters. Another type of vehicle that the Sisters of Battle have exclusive are the Paragon War Suits, and these are basically mech suits, exo armor sort of things, piloted by Celestians with very aggressive machine spirits, but have a variety of weapons, including heavy bolters, heavy flamers, multi-melters, giant power swords, and giant power mauls. These are slightly growing on me. I think I might get some at some point. So next up we got a short story. This is called Slaughter in the Rift. The fires of war rage across the narrow expanse of the Necron Gauntlet and have engulfed several Imperial worlds. On the industrial planet of Septum Verda, the Castellans of the Rift chapter find themselves beset by Imperial cultists and hateful heretical Astartes. So it's a really nice short story. It's very claustrophobic. It's all about a squad of intercessors from the Castellans of the Rift chapter as they are moving their way through the Factorum streets, cutting down cultists. There's even one part where the sergeant is literally buried under a squad of cultists, but then he keeps firing his bolter and starts gripping them and throwing them off. That's pretty cool. I have a picture of the Castellans of the Rift, so they have a nice camo green sort of colour scheme. They have standard Astartes colours for the shoulder rims, so these are of the 4th Company with green rims, black backpacks, and 2nd Squad marking there. Yeah. And the story goes on, and they find a Noctilus crown guarded by plenty of heretic Astartes in a rather open area within the district. And so they bring in some heavy support fire in the form of a squad of eradicators to help bring it down. Really good short story. Moving on, we got some more information about different orders of the Sisters of Battle. So this one is just all about the Bloody Rose, the fires of righteous anger. The Order of the Bloody Rose are the embodiment of the Emperor's hatred for heretics, psychers, and mutants. They wage wars of faith not to save the innocent, but to slaughter the guilty by the thousand. For only in death can the vile be made pure once more. So this goes on to cover a lot about how the Bloody Rose go to battle. So they are very aggressive. They like to fight in close quarters. They are noted as having one of the largest detachments of Hospitallers and Dialogi. Sorry about that, someone at the door. Right, where was I? Yes, they have a larger collection of Hospitallers and Dialogi than many other various orders. They often move from planet to planet, mercilessly butchering cultists, making sure that they free the victims in the beautiful respite of death. And then we have a little bit more background about the precepts of how they go. Precepts of wrath. This is more about how they utilize their anger in their conflict. Saint Mina, who was their founding matriarch. So they often shatter helms and skulls within, using chainswords and even their own boots. Here we have a wonderful, lovely piece of artwork featuring Dialogus and a couple of Hospitallers as they attend to a rather beleaguered squad of sisters as they fight off against Drukhari raiders. So, paint guide, I'll do a separate video covering, I might do a separate video covering my paint guide for how I do mine. I'll be doing mine, of course, in the Saltec Dynasty, so it'll be nicely done in green and silver. But for this particular Saltec, Zarak Dynasty, this is how you would paint it using the magazine. So we're using some dry brushing methods and edge highlighting. Plenty of different colours, basings and layers, shadings. And we're even glazing, learning how to do a nice battle damage effect on the forelimbs there. That's pretty cool. So, last off, we have our fold-out sheet. So this is all about the Fracture of Baal Tarn. Never did get around to reading the original Fractured book, but this really does sum up quite nicely. So, the Gathering Storm, the Fracture of Baal Tarn. So this is the second in the 3 books that led up to the end of 7th edition, I believe, into 8th. So, the Seers of the Aldari have long sought a method by which to save their race from the clutches of Slaanesh. In the wake of the Noctis Aeternia, They have been given new hope. Yniad, god of the dead, has begun to stir from his slumber, bringing with him a faint hope of salvation. So this goes on, first of all, saying about how the different Eldari gods and their children survived after the birth of Slaanesh. Many shut themselves off from the psychic beacon, and disappeared into the webway, becoming the Drukhari. The Harlequins, of course, dance and prance around the entire galaxy, and will often reside in the Black Library, which is a safe haven of sorts where chaos can't really get in. It's basically a background of all the knowledge in the galaxy of all the different races, etc. And of course the god Segarak, who is the patron god of the Harlequins. And goes into more and more about the different chaos gods, Eldari gods. The legend of the Rhinodandra, or the end times for the Eldari, which is when they finally win against chaos, but it costs them greatly. Yniad was thought to hopefully be brought into existence by Eldred Ulfwan, but he failed, but he has since been succeeded by Yvraine. So the fracture, this goes in and there's a bit of background. There's when my tongue gets tied up. This gives us a bit of background information about Yvraine. She was a Eldar who fought in the fighting pits on Gamora. She died, but then was born. She wields one of the 5 Crone Swords, which are the weapons wielded by Yniad himself. And once all are gathered, his awakening will fully come to being. It goes on to explain more and more about how Yvraine gathered a following to her. She made her way to the craft world Baal Town with the help of Lilith Hesperex. She finds that in the center of the craft world is the sleeping essence of the god Yniad. Of course, she attempts to awaken it, and this causes the entire craft world to crack into pieces. But it gets her a second Crone Sword in doing so, and she gains a new ally in the form of the Vizark. She's also supported in her efforts by Jane Zar, the Phoenix Lord, and various other Eldari, especially from the craft world of Ulfway, who are staunch supporters of Eldorad. They find a couple more of the Crone Swords on the planet Belial 4, which is also where they bring to life the Yin Khan, or the avatar of Yniad. It's a very Slaaneshi sort of looking avatar. So it's sort of half male, half female, and is weaved in the souls of many different beings. So Vizark is Yvraine's personal bodyguard. He was once trained as an aspect warrior, but very little of his past life is visible. And of course, Yvraine, herself, the chosen of Yniad. Of course, this didn't please the Chaos Demons very much. It forced an uneasy alliance between Slaanesh and Khorne. They sent the Mask and Scarbrand to assail Baal Tarn. And also, Nurgle put in a bit of effort as they sent Space Hulks to attack my favourite craft world, Iandan, where, of course, Yvraine and her followers eventually came to it, and they met with Prince Uriel, who died, but then not really, he came back to life again, turning out that his ancient spear was actually one of the Crone swords, and he now wields that. So hopefully I wouldn't mind seeing a new model of Prince Uriel with the Crone sword in the near future. It would be quite nice. Now you've got a picture there of the actual Iandan craft world itself at the bottom there. So yeah, the Triumph variant of Iniad, as you've just seen, and the other leaders of the Eldari. So we got Janezar, the Phoenix Lord of the Howling Banshees, Eldrad Ulfran himself, Master Seer of Ulfway, and Prince Uriel, the Corsair Prince of Iandan. And then we got a little bit about the Harlequins. Whew, wow. That was a lot of information. So that has covered 2 issues. This video is already 30 minutes long, so I think I might cut it there, and then I will do the build guide in another video. So, thank you all for watching this first part. I will film the build guide, well, straight away after filming after this, but I'll be posting these 2 videos separately, just so you don't have to sit through nearly an hour's worth of me blabbering and building models. So all that's left for me to do then is to say thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe for more mad content. If you don't already, there's of course all my links in the description down below for affiliate links, social medias and my Buy Me a Coffee page. Any support that you can give would be greatly appreciated. So, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.